I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen bee.
Imagine you are at the most famous party in the world. The room is filled with bright lights, gold plates, and people wearing very expensive clothes. Everyone is smiling and acting perfectly, but then you see something that should not be there. It is a small piece of jewelry, but it carries a very big secret. This small object is about to break the peace of the royal family. It is a story about a princess who decided to stand up for what is right, even when the whole world was watching. It is a story about a son who still misses his mother and a new queen who made a very big mistake. This one moment at a dinner table changed everything for the British royal family. It showed that memories are more powerful than crowns. Now let's go inside the palace and see what really happened on that night that no one will ever forget. I am 75 years old now. When I look back at all the people I have known, I can mostly only remember the woman who was like the queen bee of the hive. There was a very special night called a state banquet. A state banquet is a very fancy dinner. It is a meal where the king and queen invite important people from other countries to eat with them. On this night, everyone was supposed to wear a nice smile. They were supposed to follow all the rules and show that the royal family was happy and strong together. But in one very quiet second, Princess Catherine looked across the table. She saw a shiny pin called a brooch on the dress that Camilla was wearing. In that instant, the feeling in the whole room changed. It was not just any piece of jewelry. It was the brooch that belonged to Princess Diana. It was not a pin that just looked like Diana's. It was not a symbol. It was the exact piece of jewelry that Catherine believed should never be worn. She felt it should not be worn without a very good reason, without asking permission first, and without showing great respect. Then Catherine did something that nobody thought she would ever do. Before we talk more about why this was such a big deal for the royal family, please make sure to follow us so you never miss a story. Catherine did not blink her eyes. She did not look away from the brooch. For a few seconds, the princess sat very still. It was like her whole body felt the shock before she could even find her voice to speak. Across the long table, Camilla felt Catherine looking at her. It was a sharp look that was impossible to miss. Camilla's fingers moved toward the brooch on her dress. She did this without even thinking, almost like she was trying to hide it or check if it was still there. William was the first person to notice his wife's movement. The prince looked from Catherine to the jewel on Camilla's dress. Something inside him became very hard and cold. To him, this was not just a pretty decoration. This was a memory pinned to a piece of silk cloth. This was a piece of his mother's life being shown to everyone in public. The banquet was very important because it was not just a normal dinner. A state banquet is a formal meal for guests from another country. It is meant to show that the royal family is powerful, friendly, and proud of their nation. King Charles wanted this evening to be very calm. The king wanted everyone to think the family was happy after they had been having some private arguments. He needed the people in the room to believe that the family all moved together as one team. Catherine knew this very well. She understood that breaking the rules of a royal ceremony would have a high cost, but she also understood what it would cost if she stayed silent. If she said nothing, the memory of Diana would be ignored once again by the royal rules. Beneath the table, William slowly reached out and took Catherine's hand. He was not trying to make her stop. He was trying to help her feel steady and strong. Catherine felt his hand, but she pulled her own hand back very gently. That small movement told William everything he needed to know. The princess was not acting because she was angry or having a tantrum. She was acting because she was in a lot of pain. Camilla looked down at her plate and then looked up again. Her face changed because she realized that Catherine knew exactly what that brooch was. Charles saw what was happening too. The king's face became very tight. For the first time that night, his careful control started to break apart. The people in the room were still breathing, but only just barely. Catherine stood up from her chair. The quiet feeling in the room became very dangerous. The people serving the food stopped what they were doing. The guests looked toward the main table. William stood up just a half second after his wife. He stood close enough to show he was on her side, but far enough away to let her speak for herself. Then the princess gave an order that no one expected to hear. She asked for everyone to stop serving the meal. Camilla froze where she was sitting. Charles looked from Catherine to his wife, the queen consort. The king knew that the damage was already done. This was not just a small mistake in manners. This was like the shadow of Diana had come back. It came back through a symbol that no one had the right to use without being very careful. Before the people in the room could understand why Catherine had stopped the dinner, the people who loved Diana's memory started to show why this mattered so much. In that room, the brooch did not mean the same thing to everyone. To Camilla, it was a sign that she was finally accepted as part of the royal family. To Charles, it was a scary reminder of a past that he could never truly leave behind. To William, it was like his mother's shadow was returning at the worst possible time. And to Catherine, it was a line that had been crossed in front of the whole world under the bright lights of the palace. Catherine stayed very still, but you could see the pain on her face. She had spent many years being very careful to honor Diana's memory. She never used Diana's name to get attention. She never used her sadness like a performance for other people to watch. That was why this moment hurt her so much. Diana was not just a name from a history book. She was William's mother. She was the woman whose absence still made William feel quiet and careful. She was the reason he worked so hard to protect his own family. When William saw the brooch, his face became very stiff. The prince always protected anything that had to do with his mother. He was especially careful with things that the public could see. To him, royal jewelry was never just for looking pretty. In the language of the palace, a brooch could be a message. This specific pin carried a very old wound. A royal state event is a big meeting where the family represents their whole country. It is supposed to show that they are all united, but this one object turned that unity into something that felt very painful. Camilla tried to keep acting like everything was fine. She held her head high and tried to sit up straight. She acted as if nothing had changed at all, but her hand showed how she really felt. The queen consort touched the brooch one time and then quickly moved her hand away. It was as if she suddenly realized that everyone near the table was watching her hand move. She had wanted people to accept her. She wanted the jewelry to say that the old pain from the past had been healed. Instead, the jewel said something very cold. It said that someone else's sadness had been taken without asking. Charles moved around in his seat. It was easy to see that the king was very uncomfortable. He knew that the brooch was linked to private talks that had already caused fights in the family behind closed doors. He also knew that Catherine was not the kind of woman who would stop a ceremony without a very big reason. The king looked at William and then at Camilla. His face looked like he was carrying the heavy weight of the past. It was coming back at the exact moment when he needed to be in control. Catherine felt sad at first, then she felt shocked, and then she felt something even stronger. She looked at William and knew he saw exactly what she saw. The prince did not need to say a single word. His silence was full of hurt. Seeing his hurt gave Catherine the courage to stay standing up. Everyone else in the room expected her to just sit down and smile, but she would not do it. A woman named Sophie noticed what was happening before the others understood. Sophie is a person the family trusts very much. She leaned toward Catherine and spoke in a very low voice. Her voice was calm but full of a serious warning. She whispered that this was not the first time this brooch had caused a problem. Catherine did not say anything back, but her eyes changed. William saw it, Charles saw it, Camilla felt it. That whisper made the story go back in time. It went back to a private moment that happened weeks before. That moment made Catherine's reaction at the dinner unavoidable. This problem did not actually start at the dinner table. It started weeks earlier during a private family meeting. In that meeting, they were looking at Diana's personal things to see what could be used for a special tribute to her. A memorial tribute is a planned public act to honor someone's life. Every little detail of this plan was very important and emotional. William had been very nervous during that meeting. Anything that reminded him of his mother was not just history to him. It was his childhood. It was his loss. It was the hurt hidden behind his royal smile. Sophie had sat close to Catherine during that meeting. She watched everything with the calm of someone who understood the family's hidden stress. She knew the brooch was not just part of a collection. A royal collection is a group of personal and official items kept by the family for ceremonies and memories. When the velvet case was opened and placed in front of them, Catherine looked at William first. The prince did not touch the jewel. He only stared at it. His silence told everyone that the piece of jewelry still caused him pain. Camilla was not there for the first part of that meeting, but her name was mentioned soon after. According to a story shared later by a palace worker, Camilla had asked Charles a question. She asked if she could wear Diana's brooch at the upcoming dinner as a way to show they were all united. The queen consort thought the jewel could show that the old fights were finally over, but Catherine saw the request in a very different way. To her, you cannot make peace by taking another woman's pain and wearing it proudly for the world to see. William spoke to Charles that same evening. The prince told his father that the brooch should not be worn. He said it should stay put until he personally decided where it belonged in Diana's legacy. Charles listened to his son, but he did not make a promise. That silence hurt Catherine more than if he had just said no. She understood that people in the palace are often very careful with their words, but this was different. The king knew the object was a sensitive subject, yet he still left the door open for Camilla to wear it. Catherine found out about Camilla's request from Sophie. Sophie had heard the details from a recorded talk kept by a worker at the palace. The princess felt very upset. It was not because Camilla wanted to look important. It was because the queen consort seemed ready to take that importance from Diana. William left that meeting feeling very shaky. Catherine watched him carry that pain without saying a word. That was why the dinner became too much to handle. When Catherine saw the brooch on Camilla's dress, she knew that the warning had been ignored. Charles had stayed silent. The queen consort had gone ahead with her plan. William had been forced to see a memory of his mother while everyone was watching. So when Catherine stood up, she was not just acting on a whim. She was acting because a promise had been broken. The room did not get loud. Instead, it became like ice. Catherine did not yell. She did not shake. She just looked across the table at Camilla. She asked one question that was more important than any royal title or rank. She asked, "Why are you wearing it?" The words were very quiet, but they felt like a final judgment. In that second, the dinner became a moment where the family had to face the truth. Catherine stayed standing while the people serving the food stopped moving around her. A state banquet is one of the most formal dinners the monarchy has. It is meant to show how strong the crown is. That is why Catherine's choice was so powerful. She was not just interrupting a private meal. She was stopping a big show of national pride. Everyone in the room felt the danger. Camilla tried to answer with a calm, royal voice. She lifted her chin and looked at Catherine. She started to talk as if the brooch was just a normal part of her dress, but her voice became very tight in the middle of her sentence. The queen consort knew the truth. The guests might not have known why the jewel was so important, but the people who mattered did. Catherine knew, William knew, Charles knew. And that made Camilla look very weak. William stood up slowly next to Catherine. The prince did not talk over his wife. He did not try to make her words sound nicer. He just stood close to her so the whole room would know she was not alone. His face showed the pain he usually kept hidden. This was his mother's memory being used in public. He could not pretend it was just a bad choice of jewelry. Diana's name was not said out loud, but everyone was thinking about her in the silence. Charles leaned toward Camilla and told her very quietly to take the brooch off. The king did not raise his voice, but his command was very strong. Camilla waited for just 1 second. She paused. That one little pause changed everything. Catherine saw it and her sadness turned into disbelief. William saw it and his face became very hard. The king saw it too and his face got dark. This was because waiting even 1 second made it look like Camilla was refusing to listen. Catherine wanted things to be done with dignity. She also wanted the truth. That was the fight happening inside her. Part of her wanted to sit down and save the evening from a big scandal. Another part of her knew that staying silent would turn Diana's pain into a cheap decoration. So she kept looking at Camilla and refused to move. Camilla finally reached for the brooch, but the damage was already done. Her hand shook a little bit. That small shake said more than any apology could. She was shown to be wrong in front of all the guests. Princess Anne walked toward Charles with a very serious face. She did not try to make him feel better. She warned him. She said in a low voice that this was no longer just about a piece of jewelry. She said it was about his judgment. Once Anne said what the real problem was, the palace stopped thinking of it as a small mistake. They started treating it like a very big crisis. Behind Catherine's quiet stand was something the palace could not ignore. It was called moral authority. She did not have a crown yet. She was not the queen. She did not make the final rules. But in that room, Catherine had something stronger than rules. She had the trust of William. She had the memory of Diana. She had the image of a future queen who would not be cruel. Charles understood this shift before anyone said a word. The king still had the legal power to lead, but power inside a family can move around. That night, power did not just belong to the king. It belonged to Catherine because she defended a memory the country still loved. William stood with her because he knew that saying nothing would be like betraying his mother. After the dinner, Catherine sat in a room by herself. Her hands were folded and she looked calm, but her heart was still burning. She would not take back what she had said. She knew the palace would worry about the news and the guests. But to Catherine, the most important rule was about being a good person. Diana's legacy could not be treated like a fashion choice. It could not be used to make people feel better. It could not be used to pretend old wounds were gone. William stood near the door. He was choosing his words carefully before he talked to Charles. The prince did not yell at his father. He spoke with control, but you could hear the hurt in his voice. He told the king that Catherine had protected the family, not embarrassed it. She had stopped a painful moment from becoming a lasting insult. Charles listened, and for once he had no easy answer to give. Anne stepped in to help. She supported Catherine without making a big scene. She warned Charles that symbols can hurt people more than words. A speech can be fixed. A note can be rewritten. But once people see a symbol, they remember it forever. Anne knew the family had survived many problems before, but she also knew that Diana's memory was different. It was not just history, it was something the whole country felt sad about. Camilla's team tried to fix the problem quickly. They said the brooch was a sign of peace. They said it was meant to show the past and present were coming together. But Sophie did not believe that. She reminded them that you cannot force peace on people who are still grieving. If William did not agree to it, then it was not a sign of peace. It was just pressure made to look like kindness. Charles looked at the papers on his desk and pushed them away. He knew that checking who allowed the brooch to be used might show things he didn't want to see, but he ordered the check anyway. Every piece of jewelry linked to Diana had to be found. By midnight, the palace was very quiet, but it was a scary kind of quiet. Workers moved around without talking. Doors were closed softly. The dinner had started again, but everyone knew the real event was over. Camilla had taken the brooch off. Catherine had not gone back to her seat. Charles was facing a truth he could no longer ignore. Charles gave a private order that could not be argued with. He said that all of Diana's personal jewelry had to be looked at before anyone could wear it again. A jewelry archive is a record that shows where items are kept and who can wear them. The king knew this was important because Diana's things were not just normal items. They carried a lot of sadness and public memory. Catherine sat away from the table. She did not feel like she had won a prize. She had stopped the banquet, but doing so had made people whisper and panic. She wanted respect, not a big scene. She wanted the brooch to be safe, not the center of a fight. William stayed close to her. He understood that being strong was very hard for her. Camilla sat alone after her door was closed. She looked at the empty spot on her dress where the pin had been. That empty spot felt very loud. She had wanted to look like she belonged. Instead, she felt like everyone was questioning her. She realized that some symbols do not just do what the person wearing them wants. The palace staff tried to make up a story to tell the guests. They wanted to calm people down without telling the truth about the fight. Charles knew those words might help the evening, but they would not help the family heal. The king read the file about who said yes to the brooch. He did not speak. William read the file later and his face changed. He had thought it was just one bad choice made in a hurry. Instead, he found out the brooch had been handled by many people. That made it feel like a plan, not an accident. It felt like people had allowed it to happen on purpose. That made the hurt feel even deeper. Catherine did not want any more excuses. She asked to speak to Camilla in private. She did not want any helpers or guards there. William and Charles were surprised by the request. In that private talk, the night finally stopped being about royal rules. It became about two humans. There were no masks. Catherine and Camilla looked at each other as two women in the shadow of Diana. For the first time, honesty was more important than anger. They were in a small sitting room where their royal ranks did not matter. Camilla could not hide. Catherine would not be silent. William waited outside the door. He knew this talk was for Catherine to have, but he also knew the brooch was part of his own life's wound. Charles stayed back too. He knew if he went in, it would be about who is the boss again. This had to be a human conversation. Catherine spoke with a quiet sadness. She told Camilla that the brooch did not belong at a party meant to show unity. She said Diana's memory still carried a lot of real pain. She did not yell. She explained that you cannot force people to feel united by wearing something that reminds them of suffering. You have to earn respect by being gentle. Camilla tried to defend herself at first. She said she wanted to show that the past didn't have to divide them, but her voice got weak as she spoke. Catherine told her the truth. You cannot take acceptance from someone else's sadness. You cannot pin peace on a dress. Camilla looked down. She felt ashamed. She slowly opened the box with the brooch and put it on the table. She said she would never wear it again. Catherine did not smile, but she nodded. The promise could not fix the hurt, but it could stop it from happening again. William came in and saw the brooch on the table. He didn't have to ask what happened. Catherine's face told him everything. By the next morning, the whole country was talking about it. The picture of the dinner was everywhere. People saw Catherine standing up and William looking serious. No palace story could change what people thought they saw. It was like an old heartbreak, for the country had been opened up again. Catherine's name was in every newspaper. One headline called it the brooch that stopped the palace. People didn't think Catherine was being mean. They thought she was being protective. They saw a woman standing up for Diana. William knew that even though people liked them for this, it also made the old wounds hurt again. People even started leaving flowers at the palace gates to remember Diana. This made the story feel like real grief, not just gossip. Camilla felt the stress of the situation. People were asking why she wore the brooch without asking William or Catherine first. Charles had to act fast. He made a statement saying there would be new rules for Diana's jewelry. This showed the palace knew they had made a mistake. One person on TV said it was not a jewelry mistake, it was a memory mistake. That sentence explained exactly how everyone felt. Diana was still a big part of how people felt about the royal family. Catherine had defended that memory when it was being treated poorly. Camilla stayed quiet. Catherine did not act like she had won a game. William understood that the future of the royal family had changed. People still liked the monarchy, but they wanted them to show respect for the past. In the end, the dinner was over, but the meaning of that night stayed. It was the night Catherine showed that being loyal does not mean being quiet when something is wrong. She showed that she knew when a line had been crossed. Camilla lost the chance to use Diana's memory for her own benefit. Charles learned that you cannot just use rules to fix old hurts. William saw Catherine become the person who guards the family. Catherine made a final choice that was not about getting even. She did not want Camilla to be embarrassed anymore. She just wanted a boundary. A boundary is like a fence that keeps things safe. The new rule was that Diana's personal items could only be used if the whole family agreed. This put respect above everything else. William liked this rule because it protected his mother. He knew Catherine had done something very brave. She had stopped a royal event to save the family's conscience. Charles felt a heavy silence as he signed the new rules. He saw that palace control fails when you ignore how people feel. Diana's memory lived on in her sons and in Catherine. Anne told Catherine that what she did was called stewardship. That means taking care of something very valuable. Catherine finally felt a sense of peace. She had refused to let the pain be ignored. The royal family survived that night because Catherine had the courage to stop it. She reminded everyone what dignity really means. The future would be built on respect for the past. Diana's memory would not be used to make anyone else look better. The most important image from that night was Catherine standing up while everyone else sat down. She changed what it means to do your duty forever. Thank you for watching this story. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.